Good morning, everyone, or it could be evening, whatever time you're watching this video. But anyway, hello. So today we're going to talk about how to interview, and I'm just going to go through a PowerPoint and share with you just some tips, some pointers on interviewing your subject for the article that you're writing for our magazine, or let's say a newspaper, a local newspaper. And you know what? I feel like I have this alfalfa thing sticking up. Anyway, forget about it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll get to it. Okay, so this one is called How to Interview. It's a PowerPoint that I put together and just kind of fun. And just so you know, in the background, I have this like classical music, only because I said, Alexa, play classical music for cats, or play cat music, and it comes up with classical. Anyway, I should say, Alexa, stop. All right, so you've got the interview. Now what? What to do? So behind every great story, I'm just reading from the slide screen here. It's a great interview. Sometimes, oftentimes more than one too. So you might have more than one interview. Anyway, these are 15 do's and don'ts on what to do for your interview. It doesn't matter if you're not a great writer or you don't have all the best words to use. If you are a great interview person, you can interview somebody and ask them great questions. That's all you need. And then you can write up your piece. Anyway, sometimes I play this song by Colby, just so that your article will shine greater than the stars. All right, so the next slide here is, all right, I'll go to the next one. Just, you already know about me. I was editor in chief and publisher of my own magazine, Delta Living Magazine. And then I started another one called Perfect Pets. And I have 2 AA degrees, one in journalism, one in liberal arts at Los Medanos College, my alma mater, where I was editor in chief of the campus newspaper, The Experience, for 1 year, 2 semesters. I currently am a freelance writer for the last 22 years, says 17, but that's been updated. For the San Francisco Chronicle, the Stockton Record, the Contra Costa Times, the Oakland Tribune, Diablo Magazine, you name it. I was a teacher at Deer Valley High School, taught journalism, and I teach at Los Medanos. I teach at Diablo Valley College, Foothill College, and Butte College. But anyway, all that to tell you that I've done a lot of interviews. And I've interviewed a lot of celebrities as well. Here's some pictures of some of the people I've interviewed and some names. But anyway, it's all about how to interview, whether you're doing a celebrity or someone who is just your average person doing wonderful things for their community. So these are just some of the people I've interviewed along the way. Okay, step number 1, do your homework. So what does that mean? That means gathering information about the person that you're interviewing or the thing that you're interviewing. So that means research on the internet. If they have books or articles, read some of that. Get to know your subject a little bit before you do your interview. I also go to their LinkedIn page. I go to social media, I'll check out their Facebook page if they have one, or Twitter, see what they're posting, get a little bit of feel about who this person is. And that way you will kind of know them before you interview them. Okay, number 2, meet the subject on their turf. Now, this is a great photo because this guy here is sitting in a sandbox at his desk, looks like probably in his home. The reason why you want to interview the person on their turf, like let's say it's their office or their home, or maybe they are a expert hiker, so maybe meet them on a hike, is because you get to know the person's background and their personality. Interviewing this person on the phone, I probably would have never guessed that he's sitting in a sandbox, which is really pretty funny. But it's good to get to know their personality. If you're interviewing them in their office, they usually have photos of their family or maybe their animals, their pets. So you get to know a little bit more about the person and you can ask them about those items. Now, I know we're in COVID right now and shelter in place with this pandemic, so that does limit us. However, if there is an opportunity where you can interview them with masks, 6 feet apart, then you still will get a sense of who this person is. But so right now, if you cannot meet them on their turf, then yes, you'll have to do it by phone. And you won't, but another way you could actually do it is by Zoom. And if I was Zooming this guy, I still may not be able to see that he's sitting in a sandbox, but you could still see things around the house, like photos, or, when you watch the news, they have their stack of books behind them, or maybe their Emmy Awards. So you could pick those out of the picture and talk about that. That will enhance your interview. All right. All right. This is if you're going to meet them in person or by Zoom. Wear nice clothes, and I say casual nice. Right now I'm wearing this, like, I don't know if you can see this little white top, really kind of cute. It looks professional. It doesn't, my hair's kind of, well, a little alfalfa-ish, but it's not like that. Okay, not like that Barbie doll. So you want to look professional. You're putting a professional foot forward. If you're meeting them in person, definitely look professional, look the part. All right. Okay. Number 4, arrive prepared. So a lot of these slides are for meeting in person, but it also applies to meeting through Zoom or on the phone. And prepared means, now I love vintage stuff, you know me. So there's some vintage items on here. You may not be able to recognize them, but I'm sure you know the camera. There's a notepad, there's a pen, a pencil. Looks like an old-fashioned microphone, old-fashioned tape recorder, and a cassette tape, all these things. So if you're going to record your interview, make sure you have enough USB power, batteries. I also take notes with a pen and paper, because let's say you ran out of battery and you have or no bandwidth or whatever, no Wi-Fi, you've lost the audio. So at least you've written down some things on paper. And if you have, and bring your camera, all of that good stuff. So just arrive prepared. I once went to an interview in San Francisco for the Chronicle, and when I got there, I totally forgot a notepad and pencil or pen. I had nothing. I was so unprepared. I was so embarrassed. I had to ask my subject if they had something to write on, and a pen. How embarrassing is that? That makes you look horrible, and it could put your interview in an awkward position. They may think, wow, she's unprepared. How is she can even write this article? I mean, is it even going to turn out good? All right. So be prepared. All right. Number 5, list of questions. Now, I usually have anywhere from 10 to 20 questions prepared ahead of time. I want to make sure that I'm not going to forget anything while I have this time to interview this person. This person's time is precious, and I need to respect their time. So if I don't have my questions ready, then I'm not respecting them or the interview. So just have your list of questions ready, prepared ahead of time. I interviewed this one person who told me that I shouldn't have any questions at all, that I should just go off the cuff. Sometimes at this point in my career of 22 years of reporting and interviewing, I can actually do that. But, sometimes it's like I don't want to walk away with forgetting a really good, important question. I'm not sitting there reading off my questions, but I can glance at them and look at it and say, hey, I have this other question. So I don't really agree with that, on not having questions ready and just going off the cuff. But you can go off the cuff with your questions, and we'll get to that slide in a minute, which is right there. Stray from your questions. So just because you have that list of questions, you don't have to stick with them. And also, they may answer you on one of your questions, and that might spawn or spark a new question that came to your mind. So don't be afraid to go off course and go off the cuff a little bit and stray from your sheet of questions and ask them some more new questions. All right. What kind of questions do you ask during the interview? I'm glad you asked. Ask open-ended questions. If you ask a yes or no or a closed-ended question, you're going to get a one-word answer. That's not a great quote. All right. So open-ended questions, start with these. You can screenshot this if you'd like, but start your question with give me some reasons why you like working at that job. Tell me about that incident that happened with you. describe who, where, when, explain how, why. All of these are great questions if you starter questions. And it will give you an answer that's pretty lengthy, which is what you want. Okay? Super simple. All right. Number 8, be observant. So this would be if you're doing the interview in person or by Zoom. That means looking around their background, looking around the room if you're doing this in person or outdoors or wherever. Be observant, look around. It's one of those I spy things. I spy an old-fashioned typewriter in my room here, and tell me about that. Do you collect those? So that's what's being observant. Also, their emotions. Are they tearing up? Are they happy? Are they using a lot of body language like fidgeting? Be observant about that, because sometimes when you're speaking, you get more information from nonverbal communication skill or cues. So be observant around your whole environment that you're in and the person that you are interviewing. All right, arrive on time. And this is whether it's Zoom or even by a phone interview or in person, you need to be on time. And by on time, let's go with the military terms. If you are 15 minutes early, you're on time. If you are exactly on the nose of when you're supposed to be, you're late. Okay, so be there a little bit early. Even if it's Zoom, you can log in 5 to 10 minutes earlier before the Zoom. Shows that you are prepared and you're ready to go. If you do not arrive on time, that could be the end of your interview. They may say, forget it. That's very disrespectful of my time. And they may still go along with the interview, but it's going to be very reserved. You've already put them in an awkward position and they feel bad and they're like, I don't know, you're not very professional. I'm not going to give you that much in this interview. So if you arrive on time, that's going to open up the floodgates of everything. They're going to have that mutual respect with you. Now, let's say you are on time and they are late. Now what? Okay, still stick with it. If they're 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes late, stick with it. Stay there until they show up. And if you bounce, you're not going to have the interview. And in the real world, your editor wants that story and you're supposed to write that story and turn it in so that you can get a paycheck. If you don't have that story, no paycheck. And your editor may not be happy with you either. I know it's not a two-way street in this circumstance, but you have to, if you want that story, if you want that job, if you want to write for that newspaper or magazine or PR job or whatever it is, then you have to go the extra mile. I know it sounds unfair, but it is. All right, number 10. Only 5 more after this one. All right, leave your nerves at home, okay? Most likely, let's say you're scared to do this interview. Most likely, they have never been interviewed before, so they're kind of nervous too. They want to sound good for the interview. They want to say the right things. They don't want to say stupid stuff. So just remember, in this case, this is a two-way street because they're probably nervous also. So just kind of put those nerves aside. Think of it as, I'm learning something new. I always say that being a journalist is really cool because I feel like I'm in a classroom without walls. So I don't have to, have that whole classroom setting, but I am learning something new about somebody else. And it's awesome. So don't be nervous because they're probably nervous too. All right, 11. Leave your ego at home too. Let's say you don't want to do this interview. Let's say you actually know this person and that person's kind of a not so great person and you feel better than them. Leave that at home. Act like this is a very professional setting. You're doing an article about this person and don't feel like you're better than them or that they're better than you. So just leave that ego stuff at home and be unbiased in your interview. All right, 12, build trust. You need to build trust with that person that you're interviewing because the more trust they have in you, the more information they're going to give you and be very open during that interview. All right. So if they don't trust you, you're late, your hair's a hot mess, you just arrive just disheveled, they're not going to have any trust in you. So by doing all these other steps that we talked about first, they're going to trust you, they're going to respect you, and they're going to open up and give you a lot of information for your interview. All right. Number 13. This is something that I always ask at the end of my interview is there anything else you would like to add? The reason why I ask this question is because of an interview that I had with somebody one time. And I asked them my whole list of questions and I was on time and everything went great. And at the very end of the interview, the person was a little upset with me. I'm like, why? I'm like, I did a great interview. No, because they said, you didn't ask me about blah, blah. And quite frankly, I didn't even want to know about blah, blah, whatever they were wanting to add. But it made me think. You may not add this into your article, but sometimes they are going into this interview, you set it up prior, a week before, or whatever. They already have something in their mind that they want to tell the world through your article. So I always ask that now. I say, is there anything you'd like to add? I would say about 50% of the time, they say, nope, you got it. You did it. You're great. But there are the other 50% where they do add something else. And sometimes that addition actually added to my article. And it ended up being my last final quote in the article. So always ask them that. Is there anything else you'd like to add? They kind of like that question. All right. Number 14, leave the back door open. Now, this has nothing to do with, someone breaking into your house and just you're leaving doors open. Don't do that. No, nothing to do with that. No, what it has to do with is I always ask them, even that last question, is there anything you'd like to add? There's one more question that I do ask them after that. And that is, if there's anything else that I come up with, another question while I'm writing up my article, may I come back and ask you that either through email or phone or text? I've even texted a final question. And they always say, I've always 100% said yes. And what happens is that makes you look very professional for your article. It tells them that you want to be thorough for your article. And in case you miss something on your list or as you're typing your article, you're like, oh, shoot, I really need to know this information. It lets them know that you'll come back and ask them. If you don't ask them that question, you don't leave the back door, you shut the door, you're like, goodbye, thank you, that's it. Then you go back in again because you forgot something to ask them. Now that makes you look unprofessional. Then they're thinking, well, what else did you forget? What other question did you forget to ask me? So if you ask them ahead of time, they will say yes. Now, I will say that when I did the celebrity interviews, you can't leave the back door open because you only get sometimes 15 to 20 minutes of an interview with them. That's it, no more. So you can't leave the back door open there. But most articles are not with a celebrity. Okay, so leave that back door open. All right, the final one. This is when the real interview actually begins. So you got this person packing their suitcase, and obviously they have too much clothes to pack in that tiny suitcase. But what happens is when you start to leave the interview, even through Zoom or a phone conversation, but mostly in person and through Zoom, you start putting your stuff away, especially in person. You start putting your stuff away. You put your notebook away, your pen, you get your purse or your things, your backpack or whatever you brought. Okay, and you start putting everything away. Guess what? That's when the person starts really talking. I say, singing like a bird. They start to feel, okay, the interview's over. We're done. We're packing up. We're going bye-bye. And they have this relief that goes over them like, sigh of relief. We're done. And then they start to open up and start talking. Okay, so this is what I tell everybody. Leave your notepad and your pen last to put away. Like I would even just walk out holding the pen and the notepad because when they start opening up and they feel that relief and they're done with the interview, they start saying stuff. And a lot of times, now this is one of those 50-50. A lot of times I'll always ask, I'll say, oh, can I add that to the interview? This is really great. 50% of the time they'll say, no, that's off the record. The other 50%, they'll say, yeah, sure, okay. They have this relief when the interview is done, like when you go to interview for a job and you walk out, whew, done. Okay, let me go get a Starbucks coffee drink now. It just gives you this relief going on that you now open up and you're yourself. You're now like two friends now, and you've just made a new friend. So yeah, I always put that back, the notepad and the pen later. And if they start opening up and saying some really good stuff, then I have them, I ask them if I can use that in their interview. All right. So I think that's it. Do you have any questions? If you have any questions, ask me. And you know what? You can even ask the person that you are doing the interview on. You have any questions for me? A lot of times they will ask you two things. One, when does this publish? When can I see the article? And number two, what is your focus on the article? So, what I tell them right away is, I don't know yet. I will know when I start to write it and piece it all together. Sometimes there is a clear focus, and sometimes there isn't, not until you start writing it together. But don't show them your article. But if you have any questions about what they said during the interview, I would call them because he kept the back door open and say, "Hey, you said this, blah, blah, blah. Is this what you meant? I just want to make sure I got this correct." But yeah, those are the two questions. They want to know, when is this publishing, and when and what are you going to write about? What's your focus? So there you go. Those are your 15 steps on how to interview. And I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that it answered some questions for you. And if you do have any more questions for me, just ask me. You know I'm here. All right. Thank you so much. Let's see. How do I stop the share? Okay, stop the share. All right, you guys, that's it. This is like less than 25 minutes. I'm going to have you, gosh, I wish my hair looked better. Okay. I'll make this an assignment so that you have something to do here. And I think I'll make this due after spring break for you guys. Okay. All right. That's it for now. I'm going to end our meeting, our how to interview.